Well met, traveler. I am Qa'dojo, a monk making the pilgrimage to the shrine of Azura. Then today will be no different than any other. For while I recognize Azura's place in the pantheon of the divines, the Daedra hold no particular favor in the doctrine I follow. Some may see the line between Aedra and Daedra as a means of separation, when the divide itself is the true nature of our existence. It is in the eye of the storm that one finds balance, and with balance comes the flourishing of life. I follow the path of balance through opposition. The Aedra and Daedra are the embodiment of this mantra. It is a common misconception that these balancing forces are the spirit of good and evil, a reductive and flawed interpretation. The Aedra are the agents of stasis and order. The Daedra are the essence of change and chaos, for chaos itself cannot be an agent of anything. When the two are in balance, time progresses at its natural flow. The world changes as it stays the same. Although in truth, it is not for us to attach labels to the creators. If mortals cannot divine the nature of themselves, it is quite presumptuous to try the same with the gods. Then I implore you to ask them. To ask a question is to risk being a fool, but to cling to silence is to remain one. The Aedra are thought to be callous because they are indifferent, too often leaving mortals to their own devices. It reminds me of the parable of the acolyte priestess who stole from the alms bowl. The other acolytes beseeched the head priest to investigate the matter and cast the thief out. Yet the priest replied that he already knew the identity of the thief. The acolytes, angered, threatened to leave if the culprit was not revealed. "If I cast the thief out," he replied, "how will he ever learn remorse? If you leave, how will I ever teach you forgiveness?" That is one interpretation. The priestess, overwhelmed by her master's kindness, would realize the error of her ways. Perhaps driven by guilt, she would expose herself as the thief, and through her bravery, truly achieve the forgiveness of her peers. For any other path would result in bitterness and resentment, although these provide their own lessons, should the head priest choose to teach them. Boethia is the prince of plots, deceit, and conspiracy. Such words are sinister when spoken in the void. Yet, when the scales of power tip towards tyranny, when the strength of the dishonorable cannot be vanquished by a frontal assault, Boethia is there. Mola Gabal, meanwhile, is her nemesis. For he is strength and domination, and those who enslave others do so in his name. Although Boethia teaches us that strength can be vanquished, Molag Bal demonstrates that weakness is not a virtue. Mehrunes Dagon is the facilitator of destruction, the great equalizer of this plane. For when life is allowed to grow unchecked, it will wither from its own abundance. When the bee is drawn to the flowers for nectar, it serves to pollinate the entire garden. It is not clear whether the machinery of life is driven by motive or works to shape it. What is clear is that all things depend on each other. Removing the Daedra from this plane will disrupt the balance of life, like burning a hive of bees in response to a few stings. Yet, I will not admonish those who resent the gods or punish them for their hate, for hate itself is its own punishment, as it works to consume them. I pay homage to the divines as a whole, and the invisible thread that is woven between them. One does not look at a centipede and see 15 separate segments. One cannot focus on a leaf, for in doing so he will neglect the whole tree. You could not join a monastery. They say that a monk must avoid the carnal pursuits to achieve true wisdom. Some will deny all contact with their desires, for fear they will succumb to weakness. However, while lustful objects are not present in the room, they are present in the mind. It is better to leave such thoughts with the objects in question than with the imagination. I was trained as a priest of Stendar, but I felt the temple did not do enough to disavow the militants who walk the land in his name. I considered converting to the Temple of Julianos, and had packed for the great chapel in Skingrad to begin my training. There was only one item I could not find, my copy of the book, Aedra and Daedra. I scoured every corner of my quarters, until at last I saw it. It was placed on top of a high bookshelf. Now, they say those who hurry only slow themselves in the end. If only I heeded such sage advice. Instead of reaching for the footstool, I attempted to climb the shelf, only to fall flat on my tail. However, as it so happens, I lost my balance but gained my footing, for when my head struck the ground, I had a vision. It was an act of the divines, as was the placement of the book, and the title of the book itself. In my vision, I saw a constellation of gods, Aedra and Daedra. They made no distinction between themselves, for one were all, and all were one. One must both have purpose and flexibility. He may walk a path of many roads to the same destination. He may not know where the destination lies until the moment he arrives at it, and even then, it may not fulfill his true purpose. I am reminded of the story of a carpenter who was tasked with hanging a painting for the Count. The painting was hung over the bedchamber, and while it seemed to be a perfect fit, the Count nevertheless told the carpenter to take it down. Back and forth the pair went, from the study to the great hall, each time the Count requesting the carpenter to hang the painting, then remove it, after walking the breadth of the castle. At long last, they returned to the bedchamber. Only this time, when the painting was hung, the Count was satisfied, for only by seeing all other alternatives did he know his choice was true. And thus, my request is this. If you will do me the honor of being my carpenter, and I yours, then I will forever be in your debt. A wealthy Jarl will request a bard to craft him a verse for his children. The verse must convey his desire for their happiness. The bard meditates on the subject before returning with his verse. He stands before the Jarl and recites the following: May your children know anguish, pain and suffering. May they know boredom and strife, fear and despair. The Jarl leaps angrily from his throne and demands the bard explain this insult. The bard deftly replies, Forgive me, my Jarl. You ask me to write a verse that conveys the spirit of true happiness. I believe I have fulfilled that request, for without knowledge of pain and sadness, one cannot truly know what it means to be happy. An adventurer treads through a cave when he is attacked by trolls. He runs towards a ledge and attempts to descend down a vine of hanging moss. It is then that he discovers a pack of wolves at the bottom, waiting hungrily for his arrival. Only the moss sustains him. If he waits, he knows that help may arrive. The cave is frequented by warriors and adventurers alike. It is then that he notices the dagger lodged in the rock beside of him. It is just beyond his reach, but he thinks he can lunge for it if he lets go of the moss. The ambitious young swordsman visited the Hall of Companions in hopes of becoming a great warrior. Upon meeting the Harbinger, the swordsman asked, If I start now, how long before I can become a companion? The Harbinger stroked his grey beard and replied, 10 years. The swordsman could not wait that long. What if I trained every day? He asked. 5 years then, the Harbinger replied. To that the swordsman inquired, Well, what if I train day and night? 20 years then, the Harbinger said, his face stretching into a yawn. That makes no sense, the swordsman answered. The Harbinger looked him in the eye and cracked a wry smile. Oh, it makes sense, he said, for you see, those who hurry are slow to learn. May your road lead you to warm sands,